Good morning. Before I explain what Godspectations are, I want to ask you a question. What if you went into a juice bar, a place that purports to sell fancy fruit and vegetable juices, and were disappointed about the lack of steak? And what if you went to a steakhouse and were disappointed about the lack of salad choices? Is your disappointment about the shortcomings of the purveyor, or is your disappointment about the expectations you had before you arrived? Now, I think you've already concluded that you should have been aware that the juice bar was claiming that it sold juice and not claiming to sell something else. And the steakhouse was claiming to specialize in slabs of meat and not in piles of vegetables. And therefore, it was upon you to be aware of what they had promised in their intent. In the same fashion, we can talk about our expectations about God. I want you to ask yourself, when you find yourself content or discontent in relation to your relationship with God, how much of this has to do with a picture you have in your head about who God is supposed to be, what God is supposed to provide for you, and how God has performed in relation to those Godspectations? Therefore, just as it would have been our wisest course of action if we wanted meat, to be aware of what the establishment was promising us. We should familiarize ourselves with what God promises, as opposed to seeing God as a personal shopper or a vending machine who has promised to attend to all of our whims, our needs, and our wants, and our follies. God describes himself in his own word as Jehovah Jireh, our provider. In Genesis 22:14, Abraham has brought his son to the top of a mountain. It is implied that a sacrifice is going to occur. The only sacrifice appears to be Isaac, the son that Abraham and Sarah waited so long to receive. Abraham was willing, I believe, to put God ahead of his child and sacrifice him if that's what God wanted. God instead provides a ram, which is a picture of Christ. And Abraham says the following in Genesis 22:14. No, it says, Abraham called the name of this place, the Lord will provide. As it is said this day, in the mountain of the Lord it shall be provided. Jehovah Jireh, our provider. Observations. Abraham was willing to obey by faith, even giving up a blessing from God that he had waited for so long. He was willing to put God ahead of his child. Now, most of us will not have to make that choice, but he was willing to say, God, you come ahead of my beloved child. He was willing to lose the gift he had received. He went to the mountain God provided a sacrifice in the form of a payment for our sin. So, in this illustration of God being our provider, he makes a few specific promises that we can glean from this that are things that we can expect of God, that don't come from our imagination, don't come from our feelings. First, that God has provided payment for sin in the form of his Son. That we don't have to pay. God will provide the thing that we need, that he intends to give us, sometimes at the cost of everything else. Or rather, our willingness to have the thing that he provides, even at the potential loss of other things. Even things that we love upon this earth. Even blessings of God. I have more to say on Godspectations, but this is a good start. If I have blessed you, encouraged you, equipped you in any fashion, please bless me by liking and subscribing. Thank you, and God bless you.